We have got the editor over at American Free Press, Mark Anderson, who did an incredible job last year in Switzerland covering Bilderberg 2011 in June. It's normally in early June, sometimes in late May. Coming up in about 25 minutes, he's going to ride shotgun with us. Jim Tucker is going to be popping in and joining us. Jim Tucker, author of the Bilderberg Diary, and, of course, one of the editors there at American Free Press. And we're going to be breaking all of that down. Mark Anderson, again, has just done an exemplary job when it comes to exposing Bilderberg as well. And more as Jim gets older, the torch is getting passed to Mark Anderson. And this is important because Jim Tucker has been shot at covering Bilderberg in Europe, in Portugal. He's been arrested, you name it. I've been detained, arrested, threatened, had people try to shut us up, trying to cover it. This is a big deal, and he's the only person who has real Bilderberg group contacts. He's able over and over again to tell you what's going to be announced months or years before with exact precision. And I know Mark more and more is segueing, taking the baton from Jim. Jim's still charging out, an amazing person. But Mark Anderson joins us to give us any intel on new developments. There's always the rumors that the globalists will rent a hotel they're not really going to use in another country. Then they'll get another one to divert people in the city, in the country they're going to be at. So here to break it down is Mark Anderson. Mark, thank you for coming on with us from AmericanFreePress.net.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me on. It's been a busy 24 hours. I've been poking around over in Chicago about the current thing, and that's, of course, the upcoming NATO meeting, which very well could tie into this. As Jim will tell you later, Bilderberg tends to operate in the shadows of other meetings because even these wealthy billionaires try to economize and have their Bilderberg meetings not too far away from where they have their other confabs. So there's a lot of activity in the Midwest with the NATO summit upcoming in May, but they're having prelims right now. The Chicago Council on Global Affairs met last night, and Nicholas Burns, a former U.S. representative to NATO, spelled out some of the NATO agenda, although in very general, broad terms for public consumption. And they're even having a mini NATO summit as we speak at Chicago Water Tower Place right now.
But they might also have it in Virginia because they moved the G8 that they were going to have with the NATO summit out of Chicago. But every 4 years, it's generally in North America. You're saying your intel is leaning towards the United States, not Canada?
Yeah, Canada's a possibility. They're having the Codex meeting up there in May. That seems less likely now. Jim and I just discussed this. It's kind of draw a card, discard, draw a card, discard. As you say, they kind of make dummy announcements to try and throw people off the trail. We've heard Haifa, Israel, in recent times that they might hold it there, which is a little disturbing. No reporter likes to go there too much. We don't know how good the security would be. We don't know how safe a reporter would be there in such turbulent times with the situation with Iran and all that. But I think that as you say, they moved G8. I thought I had heard Camp David on G8. Is that right, Camp David, Maryland? Is that what you heard, Alex?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so that kind of splits things a little because they were going to have the G8 in Chicago, as you know, with the NATO summit, the first ever NATO summit in the Windy City. With Rahm Emanuel there, I'm not too surprised, though. He's sort of a regional global administrator for a business outfit called World Business Chicago, which is a bunch of wealthy, elites and well-connected people that is a semi-official body of the city of Chicago. A typical mingling of public and private, which is what these globalists do. And so the chess men are being moved around the board. NATO is becoming more proactive. They're calling themselves the first responders of the world now, obviously departing from their traditional defensive posture.
As Jim said they would do a decade ago, that they were going to have that be the world army, NATO, and folks are like, yeah, North Atlantic Treaty Organization is going to be the world police. They now say, we are the world police.
Yeah, first responders. That means, when something goes wrong, they're the ones on the scene, but I have a feeling it wouldn't be with ambulances.
No, that's when they fund al-Qaeda to attack your country. They come in and bomb your country to back up al-Qaeda publicly.
Yeah, who knows what insanity lurks in the hearts of men. But anyway, long story short, Jim can give you a little bit more in the follow-up to what I'm saying now, but I'm watching the Midwest, especially NATO, having a preliminary meeting right now at Chicago Water Tower Place.
Have they ever met in Chicago before?
No, not the NATO ministers, not a full-blown NATO meeting. This is the first time ever.
Has Bilderberg ever met in Chicago?
Not to my knowledge. Ask Jim that one. You know, there's lots of resorts in and around Chicago, big country clubs that have big gates around them. You know, there's a lot of posh little areas as you head up.
Yeah, they made a mistake with Chantilly because we could get up within 100 yards of the meeting area and bullhorn them, and world leaders were coming out and giving me, if looks could kill, I'd be lying on the floor.
Exactly. So, you know, to hit a golf ball in their beer, or to drop to drop whatever you want in their champagne. We have to find out where they're doing these things. But as I say, I'll be following the Midwest thing. Jim's going to be looking at Canada a bit. As you say, every 4 years they have a tendency to be in North America.
Well, I know he looks, but a lot of years his source finally just tells him where it is. Bilderberg internally, as you know, just stating what's for the audience, they hold it from even the mid-level people till right before.
Yeah, that's true. And the way it went in Switzerland last year, where everything from foggy alpine mountains to especially high media coverage and agitation from protesters, when that really drove them out of there fast. They got there late due to the fog as it was, and then they left early. And then Dominique Beitig, that Swiss legislator, was demanding to get in. You remember all that. And they were really, they really got rushed out of there in a huff. And, they're, who knows, they're probably, as I've said before, they're probably considering breaking this thing down into smaller meetings. And, well,
we know that's already been going on. If they were smart, that there's resorts that are on multi-thousand-acre areas where they could just drive through and be left alone. They're idiots. Yeah,
and next thing you know, they'll stay at a Super 8. I don't know what they're doing. It's strange in that sense that they don't just go to a Rothschild estate or an Eaton or Rockefeller's Pacantico Hills, up along the Hudson Valley. Why don't they just go there? I don't know.
Well, they like the golf course is why. They always like to have a golf course.
I guess so. Spoiled brethren that they are. At any rate.
Well, it's got to be an open resort they can bring hookers into as well. Stay there. We're going to be right back on the other side with the editor of American Free Press, AmericanFreePress.net. Subscribe there. You're not going to get any better Bilderberg coverage anywhere than you're going to find at AmericanFreePress.net. And then after that, Infowars.com. Stay with us. Roving editor of American Free Press is our guest, Mark Anderson. If you want to subscribe to the weekly newspaper, one of the only independent newspapers out there, it's 888-699-NEWS, 888-699-NEWS, or you can go to AmericanFreePress.net. And they really care about liberty and freedom because they just share their scoops with Infowars.com every year. And then we share it right back, and it goes up on the Drudge Report and everywhere else. Millions of readers of the stories we write. I mean, we shot videos that got millions of views. Our Justin TV live feeds got 3.5 million views in 2 days. The YouTube got another 2 million. I mean, that's not the radio show. That's Justin TV that we only use when we're on the road because we can't handle the cost on our own servers. 3.5, well, more like almost 4 million. I mean, whoa. And we're going to have reporters there this year if it's in Europe. If it's in the U.S., you better believe I'm going to be there. I'm not looking forward to the feds, though, always trying to set me up and break into my hotel room and stuff. And David Rockefeller calling me up. People wouldn't. In fact, I didn't even say that. I won't even say stuff on air. It's so bizarre. I tell you, a lot of circuses, isn't it, there when you cover Bilderberg, Mr. Anderson? In the 4 minutes we've got left with you, other points you think are important to make about Bilderberg 2012?
Well, they're at a very pivotal point with NATO. I think the fact that NATO's having a major crisis thing going on, NATO keeps saying, what is our future? Will we just, go the way of the Edsel or the way of the Studebaker, or will we have our mission redefined? they're constantly looking in the mirror and putting lipstick on and saying, what is NATO? What is our mission now that the big bad Russians aren't the main thing? And so I think a major thing is going to be to nail down NATO and get it the way they want it. I think they showed a lot of their arbitrary and brutal force in the attack on Libya, and showed what did H.G. Wells call it, the shape of things to come. And I think that that's going to be a huge thing. Jim will probably elaborate on them wanting to create a world treasury department. You know, that's one of their broad, long-range goals.
And they're openly announcing Bank of the World right now. I mean, that's what they want. I mean, you're totally vindicated, and so is Jim. Jim, 35, 36 years covering this when they said it didn't exist. It's all out in the open now. What have you found on that front with the fact that everything you've talked about is now admitted?
Well, one of the things is I think you're going to see more American coverage because of it. I haven't found a great deal on that. I think a lot of that's going to become clearer this year in terms of this being a more open thing. Of course, I think European news sources will continue to give it more coverage, even though that coverage is not always favorable. Sometimes the coverage is, yes, there's Bilderberg, but the people protesting it are the problem, not the Bilderbergers themselves. That came up in the Swiss and German press last year a little bit. And but NATO's restructuring, NATO wants Germany to pay much more of the bill. They say Germany has the biggest economy and a lot of the real powerhouse of Europe, and yet they're saying Germany isn't spending enough on its military and needs to put more of a footprint monetarily and militarily into NATO. So, in other words, NATO's dictating to what we think should be sovereign nations how big their military should be, how much money they should spend on
Well,
it.
I mean, the bankers are installing presidents in Greece and Italy now and acting like Germany's taking over. Germany's being sucked dry to fund the creation of the global government that they admit publicly is going to be the euro.
Yeah, they've been trying to suck Germany dry, bailing out Greece, and you know, all these things are the chessmen that the Bilderbergers help move around the chessboard that is their world from their point of view.
Let me ask you this question. They've got to be mad about last year. I mean, you guys and my crew blew them wide open last year.
Yeah, you can still hear the voices echoing through the Alps, including singing David Rockefeller a 150,000th birthday or however old he is now, and those voices are still probably echoing through the Alps. I remember that as the protesters came down the hill from the Randelins, a hostel there, to the Hotel Sovretta, carrying torches that looked like something out of a Frankenstein movie. It was just absolutely surreal. And saying David Rockefeller a happy birthday to kind of give us a humorous note.
Yeah, it's got the double entendre or the double meaning, like it's friendly, but it's not.
Yeah. Haven't you been here long enough? No offense, but it's time for you to leave now. Was sort of the underbelly.
I think it speaks well for the Swiss that they gave the biggest response to Bilderberg ever of anybody else.
It does. It was awkward to have a group like that in a country known for its storied independence. And that's what Dominique Basic was trying to say. If you're going to do this, what are you doing it here for?
Well, look, we're going to have you on graciously. You're very gracious to come on with us as this develops. And from Bilderberg this year, I may be there. Mark Anderson, AmericanFreePress.net. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Okay.
You want to stay over with Jim, or you need to go?
I'll give you 5 more minutes.
Okay. We're on the